Welcome to a truly summer podcast. I've just walked through the beautiful wildflower meadow with Geordie, and we've come to stand in the lee of a beech tree in the shade in the Wood of Goodwill. Geordie, thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope it will be a lovely meandering walk through the gardens that you and I have really created together.
And it's been a fantastic project, really over 20 years now, and just the wildflower meadow itself to the south of the castle, it's just bursting with extraordinary variety and colour of the ancient chalk species, which so many have disappeared from our southern hills in England, and we're getting them back here.
So I think you can hear a helicopter in the background, so that's one of the Army or RAF helicopters which fly over us from time to time as they're practicing, which I suppose we should all be very grateful for.
So the wildflower meadow this year is really a blaze of colour, and I've actually never seen so many wild orchids in it, both the common and especially the pyramid orchid. Somehow the conditions, the weather, the ecology this year seem to really help them, and we have all these little incredible bright little purple spots everywhere where they're there amongst the taller oxeye daisies, blue scabious, wild geranium. It really is a sort of wonderful mix of feast for the eye of summer wildflowers.
Diversity, or whatever people choose to call it, and as it goes on, then there's more wild thyme and ever more beetles and insects, and later on butterflies, and we've already seen quite a few bees.
Yes, today is quite a breezy day, but if it's a warm day with little wind, the actual hum of the insects in the wildflower meadow is something to be believed, really.
So we've now come into the Wood of Goodwill, as I mentioned, and this was a leisure garden created by your, I don't know how many greats, ancestor between sort of 1730 and 1750, when he created meandering glades and avenues through which he and his guests and family could walk and enjoy picnics and just simply enjoy some time outside.
Well, I think we're doing the same thing ourselves now.
I think we are too.
I mean, Robert Herbert did have some of the ideas of Capability Brown before his time. He liked the ideas of open space and great views away from the house rather than the intensive gardens by the house. And we've extended that whole idea. In fact, he had a nice avenue here, and how many years ago was it? It must be 12, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
We actually extended the rather broken part of his avenue and refreshing it and repairing it from beech trees on the estate. We transplanted them here.
We did, and then actually it was one of our rare hot summers, may this be another one, and we had to water them, do you remember, with really heavy hoses to keep them going?
Well, yes, moving trees is difficult because they expect quite a lot of water, and I remember actually the following springs were very dry, so I was watering as much in the early spring as we were when we put them in, but we didn't lose many in the end, and they're all here in all their glory today. And in fact, the young beeches have some kind of clever ecosystem near us which is helping bee orchids do well in this area,
yes,
which don't really feature in the main wildflower meadow. That's always a bit of a mystery to me, but it must be something about the sort of cohabitation of the soil chemistry from the beech trees and the ground.
Robert Herbert's replanted Beech Avenue creates a really good access through this area. And then, you and I, not knowing how to do it, if you remember, we've decided to do it in the 4 seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter, in terms of highlighting planting in different areas of this garden. And you have really gone to town with your bulbs, my darling, haven't you?
Just from the point of view of extending the seasons and enjoyment, we thought this area was a wonderful area to start from really, so you had colour here from literally early March onwards all the way through till May. So we found a great guy from Holland, our friend Michael Byrne. He comes with a machine here and plants thousands of bulbs, but not in a straight line like soldiers, in quite a sort of wavy pattern with bulbs that come up at different times. So it all appears really rather wonderfully wild and beautiful, and they give a lot of enjoyment in the early part of the year. Of course, by now that time has gone and we're into all our beautiful summer flowers, but in the early spring there's something special.
So we sort of divide up how we plant and our plans in the Wood of Goodwill. And I tend to buy and place many of the shrubs. This is a Philadelphus, and that's the Philadelphus Lamarcki. The smell, the scent, it's just the scent of summer. and we're walking through a little walk dedicated to our friend Kit Hesketh Harvey, who sadly died. So this is a walk to remember him and all the entertaining evenings and the pleasure he gave so many people with his cabaret and songs and his acts and his work on stage. So it's a glorious remembrance, commemoration, I hope, of a truly wonderful and colourful man. And there's trees and plants which kind of highlight what I think of as his character. But it begins with Philadelphus.
Well, of course, Philadelphus is also known as mock orange, because you get this wonderful scent as if you were in an early spring orange farm glade in somewhere more Mediterranean, like Spain. But we have it here in the summer, and just within a few meters of it, with the wind, you can't help but really appreciate it as you're wandering around here in this wonderful, wild woodland garden.
I have so many favourite plants that everyone's a favourite. So walking along here, you begin with some Philadelphus, and then this is an amazing Cornus Cusa with these tiny, wonderful white flowers which seem to go on for a couple of months anyway. And they just are a source of wonder and admiration. Just at the foot of them, I've created a little bed which is yellows and purples and blues, such variety of colour, because I think, again, Kit, we're still on Kit's walk, offered us such variety and colour in his life. The paths that we're walking now, Geordie and I tend to walk most days. I think as gardeners, you're always seeing what the problems are as well as what you're looking at. And I keep looking at problems, but I also want to enjoy them. And I hope they give many of our visitors such pleasure. And I like the stories about people, because Highclere is about people as much as the stones of the castle. It's the people who've lived here over centuries, the people who've entertained us all, and we've made a happy life with.
I think the glory of this area is it's as much so beautiful at the beginning and the end of the day. So when the light is more flat and lower in the evening in the summer, you get another different type of range of colours and shadows in here. And I love being wandering around here that time of day. Early in the morning, I sometimes run through all these paths here, because it's a great way of being peaceful on an early morning run. Again, different types of light and shadow on the plants as the sun's coming up. It really is a very special area, because there's lots of younger trees, or trees at different stages of life here, of oaks and beeches. The more shrub-like dogwoods, a very old yew that when we created this area, we left when we took out lots of rather unexciting softwoods that were very dark, and of course the beech hedge, behind which is the famous secret garden. So things sort of lead on to other paths and visual adventures around here, really.
And the trees we've planted are both in memory of people who've work with us today. And I'm looking at a tulip tree over there, which my number 6 sister Georgie and her husband gave George and I when they married. They married from here some 12 years ago now, and it will at some point flower. It still hasn't flowered. They take about 12 to 15 years to flower. So every summer I get really excited, hoping this may be the summer. It doesn't look like I'm quite at that point. So on the one hand, I want the summers to go really slowly. On the other hand, I'm always looking forward. What a muddle it is.
And around the base of the tulip tree are some Japanese Sakura cherries given to us by the people of Japan, and they're, Japan's famous for the cherry season in the spring. But these come out very, very nicely here. They're just plainly green at the moment, but fantastic hues of pink and white in the early spring.
So why don't we go through towards the secret garden, darling?
Yeah.
I love the serpentine curves of this secret garden, Geordie. It's not merely not straight, but I'm looking from here, all the levels are mixed up as well, aren't they?
Yeah, well, the idea of this garden in its layout was actually in my grandfather's time. The sixth Earl, and it was developed in the 1970s, and a famous garden designer called Jim Russell, who lived up in the north at Castle Howe, he came and helped my grandfather design it, And it was a clever idea with the curving paths and different shrubs planted. And we've just taken it on to a new level over the last 15, 20 years or so, including on the south-facing side, planting tall sunflowers that give a big splash of colour in certain places, don't they?
They're amazing. So we've looked at what they planted and both kept true to that, but also the climate is changing, the seasons are changing, and we also have visitors here in the height of summer. So what we plant here needs to work for visitors in July and August, which are our most visited times. Having said that, Geordie and I both love roses. You love tulips, darling, don't you?
The tulips in the spring we have to put in here in a special way so they don't get eaten by mice and squirrels and things like that. We're somehow just about winning. But there's even a fun thing here, like a stump of a cherry tree that sadly died, that we planted a famous climbing rose called Rambling Rector up, and it's now this whole stump is now covered in this white, gently scented climbing rose, which is fantastic.
Yes, it's really nice. So we sort of go through here with the gardeners and each of us decide what we think has worked, what needs a little bit more exuberance. And there's bright colours dotted along it because that then draws the eye. They're quite broad borders. So there's obviously taller cherry trees or my much loved pineapple tree, the Cytitis batandra at the far end, which I love.
But also delphiniums, which are a classic from an English garden. I love the various hues of blue, the dark blue, purples, light blues and whites of the tall delphiniums. They are really special, something special to look at, unless there's an enormous thunderstorm when they get knocked over.
Yes, and we go away and we're inspired by other people's gardens and bringing back ideas of mixing oranges and blues together or whatever else we do. So we come back here from our travels with other ideas. So it's continually reinventing itself. It's, I hope, a wonderful mixture. And
nice daylilies coming out immediately by us now.
Know. And of course, Downton Abbey used it. There was a few scenes with Maggie Smith and
it was her
dower garden.
Her Sunshine Tea Garden here, even though her actual fictional dower house was in Surrey.
Yes, no, well, it was such a muddle, wasn't it? But they used to walk through here and try and use some of the setting in the gardens for some of the scenes in Downton Abbey, which obviously is the joy for us as well, isn't it? So why don't we go through to the white border?
Why not, yeah.
It's colourful, isn't it?
Yeah. Beautiful garden.
And we put in all this, I know she lynch this or likeness, and I thought it wasn't enough, and it's definitely enough.
Yeah. But you see the
Really
two stumps here, they had these really scented Italian red cedars, and you could really smell the plant. But sadly, in one of our storms, they both got, one fell over, the other one got cracked by a limb. We had to take them down, but they've been here for ages. But anyway, we got lots of colour around them, and the clematis growing and that.
Yeah.
This is
even notice.
Yeah.
I mean,
Beautiful.
you noticed because you knew, but
I know.
We didn't.
I'd
They
like
grew
to
up quite
plant
nicely.
some instant cedars, which is what they're called somewhere else.
Yeah.
But they do grow very big, so
Yes.
I can't figure out where that is yet
Right.
to be. And I'd like to get some pots to put on them. I think it'd be
Oh
quite
yeah,
fun.
that would be great.
Yeah.
I can't decide. Probably they need to be darker pots or something, so I haven't figured that one out either.
Yes, sure.
Anyway.
Beautiful.
Oh, nothing's ever
Oh.
quite right for a gardener.
No, that's
No.
right. You're always changing it. My
Yes.
mom's out there every day. So I've been
Yes.
taking videos for her. She'll be inspired.
So it's lovely chatting to some visitors. I think the gardens give them much pleasure.
Oh, I think it's great when I meet up with our friends from North America or anywhere who are visiting here in the gardens, because you can really talk about their interest in the scenes around them, and they really do appreciate the gardens. And it's great to be able to answer some questions until I get asked a really complicated one about a plant, and that might go wrong. But mostly I can, and I love to join in their enthusiasm with the gardens and the flowers.
Yes, and it's a nice, I hope, trip out from London. Hopefully the trains are working easily.
Well, we're in our white border now. We're pretty well, most of the plants are mostly white, but there's something so special at the moment because our tall white delphiniums are out in a large clump, and there's so much whiteness about them. You probably need dark glasses just to look at them, but they are really spectacular.
So you're very happy with your delphiniums.
I'm really, well, actually, only a few short time ago, the cranberry, which is a blaze of little white flowers and related to the cabbage family, was out behind, but the cranberry are now over.
But I love their structure and architecture.
And there's some stilby there in front of us, which are also white, with a climbing rose. So everything is different versions of white here. Though occasionally we get a a naughty foxglove vegetatalis, which crosses with the wild one, and you get tinges of purple appearing.
I know. It is magic, isn't it? So we each have our favourite plants. I love gowras. Geordie loves delphiniums. We both love poppies. I think my mother-in-law loved the cramba. I always think of her when I see it, and I love the architecture of it. There's some you can see where the lilies of the valley were. It's now just rather lovely green leaves.
Lupins are bright here, though.
And the lupins look very good. I love lupins. Do you like lupins?
I love lupins. Yeah, they're fantastic. And actually, and again, the hydrangeas are all around here, aren't they?
Yes, and they're not yet out. And then, meantime, at the end, this part of this the white border, we have this Romney cultura, which is such an extravagant, wonderful poppy-like flower is probably the best way to describe it. And as you round the corner, a new white rose that we've planted. I can't remember which one it is, Geordie, actually. I'm not sure. It's iceberg. If I bend down, I bet the label's gone. But I bought it.
The big block of pruned and trained yew hedge behind is very old, though, isn't it? That really.
It is. I think it was planted by the second Earl of Carnarvon when he transformed what was an orchard and herbery from medieval times into his Italian leisure-style garden. Round about 1810, 1820, and it has grown and developed. And behind here is where your parents developed this white border, which is rather lovely.
And there's something special about the tall holly, which is entwined in with the yew, because that's Highclere holly, isn't it? Alta Clarensis.
It is, which is rather good.
Yeah.
Well, the second Earl was a very keen botanist with his brother William Herbert. Heaven. Now, is that what I think is it? One of my favourite roses, Fontaine Latour, and some of the French roses, Jacques Cartier, more old-fashioned ones. So, we're in the Monk's Garden now, and the walls probably go back to about 1000 AD. Isn't that extraordinary? They have been repaired, but some of the old flint and brick at the bottom probably does date back to then. And again, the second Earl made them a little bit taller, and then introduced 9 arches on the side towards the castle, which I think are because there were 9 muses, and he was very classically influenced. Very classically influenced family, madam.
Here we have the long Victorian peach nectarine house, which we've now recently repaired, fully back to the sort of the skill of the Victorian craftsman, all the clever lights you can open, and then at the base of it a long border with a massive colour from delphiniums, Alchemilla mollis, geraniums, all sorts of things, isn't there?
Alstroemeria. Quite a lot of euphorbia, because that again gives texture. It's really all about texture, and bronze fennel, which then comes and gives a really good backdrop.
The fennel, which is actually the same as a plant. Is it a plant same as a plant fennel, or is it a different type of fennel?
Well, no, I can eat the leaves. The leaves, well, I don't know, I eat the leaves, so I hope it's all right. Anyway, I'm still here. And then through the middle are the arched yew hedges, which we have trimmed back quite a bit. I think they got very overgrown during each of the 2 world wars, actually, and they have gone a long way onto the paths, as you can see. But I'm not going to trim them back that much more, unless you really want to. Anyway, these challenges are things to think about. And along this wall here, there's medlar pears and medlars and crab apples, which I try to make crab apple jelly from. Funny enough, this bed, as you come into the Monk's Garden, was the one that you and I first began to develop after your father had sadly died, because it wasn't really working. It needed quite a lot of fertiliser, mushroom compost.
It needed a lot of compost and other soil improver dug into it, because the roses were not so happy, but they're much happier now. And then penstemons have done very well here as well. Really.
Well, there weren't any penstemons, and actually it was Doug Harris from Penwood, and who with his wife suggested we began to introduce penstemons, which are bell-liked bell-shaped flowers which seem to go from June to October, providing colour, and they are simply wonderful this year. And I love this deep pinky red colour. I think it works incredibly well.
We've also got Johnson's blue geranium
Yeah.
and agapanthus, which is wonderful in this country. In South Africa it grows wild like a weed, but we love it as a special plant here. And that you can get this fragrance off some of these climbing roses. They're quite older types, aren't they? So basically,
They are a mixture, actually, the whole way along. There's a Gertrude Jekyll, which we put in, which is much more modern. I saw the old planting plan from your grandfather's time. There's Fontaine Latour and things like that, which some of them have done better than others. They do slightly struggle. It's quite a dry bed with a wall to one side of it, but I think every gardener complains about the soil and the bed and the position of it. But in the end, I think it looks pretty cool. And you've got your wonderful pots. You like your pots?
Yes, there's some sort of. They look as if they've been sort of very old with flaky outsides to them. In fact, that's some clever modern technique, but we love them. As the flowers look nice to our sort of Greek type urn pots. Look as if they're a flaky great age, but not so old really.
They do. And then we planted some roses along the inside wall of the monk's garden here, in between the arches, and I planted a rose which I love. It's called Compassion. I think it's a very pretty colour, a very apricot-y colour against the brick walls, which I think does go really well. I also simply love the name, Compassion and Kindness. That's what we all need more of in this world sometimes, I think. And there's also clematis, purpley clematis, above all the beds of lavender, which we'll be collecting and adding to the gin. Heaven. Now, should we head out through the gate and back towards the castle?
Yeah, why not? Let's do that.
Thank you so much for coming on this walk with me, Geordie. And the gardens are so full of memories and, I think, achievements. And we're now coming along the gravel path, which many people have walked along, not least the cast and characters of Downton Abbey. And the southeast corner of your golden castle hoves into view. It is incredibly beautiful.
I'm never bored of the gardens and the view from the castle at any time of the year here. There's always something of beauty and a special feeling and history, longevity, creativity, nature and its wildness. Even I've just spotted some of the wild orchids have even found their way to the bank in front of our Victorian orangery, and they'd never been there before. So nature is so creative in its own way, how it moves around here. It's just very special, really.
It's lovely. Thank you, Geordie.
Well, thank you, Fair Darling, for a great walk in the garden. It's brilliant on this wonderful afternoon.
Thank you for listening to this edition. There are more podcasts from life at the real Downton Abbey on my podcast page at ladycarnarvon.com. And please don't forget to subscribe so you automatically receive the next episode.